And now, a man whose name says he should have been a cartoon character. Please welcome Dr. Woody Flowers.
Good morning. Well, here we go again. Now, I'm not going to give you a PowerPoint presentation, but I do think I want to start with a marker point presentation. Now, it may seem a little late to ask this question, but I want to talk about why first. Well, that's not going to work. I guess we better flip this. Okay, now let's take a closer look. Some of you are going to do this project because it's fun. And many of you want to do it because you spend time with your friends. And there's lots of good reasons to have first on your resume. It may help you get into the college of your choice or get a job. And these are all good reasons, but our sponsors and most people in the world want to imagine that FIRST can help improve STEM education. And there seems to be no doubt that we need more engineers. It's also very clear that we need to increase productivity in the entire workforce. Those are also good reasons. These things across the top are about you and about your team. These things across the bottom are about society and about our precious planet Earth. So now that we have framed the question, let's notice that these things are looking inward and these are looking outward. Let's make some space and take a closer look. Right in the middle is you. And you are surrounded by a very complex world that we adults have created for you. Now, those of you who are in St. Louis heard me argue that in order to be competitive in this complex world, you have to have comparative advantage when compared to the thousands of smart people that are out there. And you have to be able to do things that very precise and fast robots cannot do. And you also have to have an advantage over supercomputer systems. And the good news is that you have the first advantage. You will have learned a lot about robots. You'll know a lot about computers. And through gracious professionalism, you will be able to work with the many other intelligent people on the planet. But there are three things that you must also do. You must be informed. You clearly must be creative. And you have to be willing to do some serious thinking. Now, this is the subtle side of the triangle. Informed is necessary but not sufficient. I hope that in your schools, you're learning a lot of stuff so that you will be informed. If you're not learning it in your school, you're responsible yourself. If it's written in a textbook, you should be willing and able to learn it by yourself. But you need to think about your future and this axis. And along this edge, let me give you some homework. There will be links at the first site that will allow you to listen to Steve Jobs' graduation address to Stanford. Wonderful comments about having passion for your career and what it's like to try to be very creative. On the other extreme, read the transcript of David Foster Wallace's presentation at graduation of Kenyon College. It's heavy. He makes a strong point about the difference between just learning to think and learning to pick what you think about. Now there's a nice middle ground that is Elizabeth Gilbert's TED conference presentation. She was the author of Eat, Pray, Love. She says some very nice things about what it's like to try to have a career in a world where everyone pushes back against creativity. So let's come back now to the big one. There are lots of models of creativity, of creative process out there. Let me use one that David Wallace, the faculty member at MIT who teaches the senior design course, has developed. All projects have a time axis. So let's imagine that this is today, kickoff, and this is ship date for the robot. There's also an axis that we'll call the precision thinking axis. But Dave makes the point that in the beginning of a process, of a project, you think broadly, very creatively, and non-judgmentally. The night before you ship, you better be thinking very precisely and carefully and in depth. So let me fill in the rest of the diagram. Now you can see that at any one time, there is a ratio that one should apply to how creative you are versus how detailed you are. In fact, this is a fractal diagram. All the little tiny projects that occur along the way look the same way. You have to know where you are in the process. Good designers, be they doing videography or marketing or engineering design, know that in this end, you want to reserve judgment. You want to be free. In this end, you certainly do not want to exercise dreaming or wishful thinking. You must use a very realistic imagination. So pay attention to this process as you go through it. Now, if you look at the website for MIT's Senior Design course, a lot of this information is there. Spend some time there, you can learn quite a lot. So as I finish and draw the final square, you recognize that we're back at familiar first geometry. So let me summarize. I argued that being informed is not enough. Knowing calculus is not rocket science, but knowing how to think using calculus is. Creativity is not a thunderbolt that comes out of the sky. It's something that we all have, and we can enhance not only our ability to be creative, but our self-confidence about relying on creativity. I guarantee you that if you do some of this homework I've outlined and you pay attention to the creative process, you can double the impact that this first season can have on you, and definitely improve the chances that you can get into the college that you want and get the job that you want. So none of this is easy, but help is everywhere you look. Let's listen to Gene Zhang and Stephen Hall, both First alum, talk about First scholarships.